Welcome, everyone. Everyone, please stand for the pledge. Ken, you're closest to the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome again. We will start right out with the approval of the agenda.
To entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda, board meeting agenda for August 15th, 2022.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
For the August 1st minutes, is this the one that you voted on?
That's February 7th.
Entertain a motion to approve the August 1st, 2022 regular board meeting minutes.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And let's go right to meeting, right? All right. No. All right. Sorry about that. I'm ahead of myself. Superintendent.
Yes, we have some news to definitely share. So, August has turned into a very, very busy month for us. Okay. So as you can see, demolition is continuing in the small gym, where that, I don't know, is that a lift that's in the doorway? That is actually ground level. So that is the wall that is missing. That is, you can see directly into the small gym. When I talked about the steel post not going all the way to the ground, where that concrete wall stops, that's where those steel posts are attached to the concrete. So it just changed the order in which the demolition took place. As we were demoing the small gym, we became aware of just more about how both gymnasiums are constructed, which leads us to the large gym. Because the block walls are epoxy, they do not have masonry material in between the blocks, and the epoxy is now 50 years old and it's starting to fail. So based on what we discovered while we were demoing the small gym, we have had structural engineers inspect the large gym walls. And you know what they've determined at this point is that those walls are unpredictable and need remediation. We're still in the process of determining what that next plan of action is and how to remediate that, because when we move forward, we do have our project team meeting tomorrow. We will determine whether or not this meets emergency project status. If it is, I'll bring a recommendation to you as the board to declare it an emergency project. We will have estimate cost and develop a timeline. What's important to know that the proposed solutions are a temporary fix, and we'll need an extensive renovation in 1 to 2 years on this space. Really, the justification is we cannot go 2 years without any physical education space for our students. And we would not be able to move forward with a full renovation with, voter approval, design, in a timely manner. And I have both Kyle and Gary here. I don't know if there were questions from the board in regards to where we are. We received the final report on Thursday. So we're still digesting and figuring out our next steps.
When you say temporary, what does that entail?
It would be temporary shoring and reinforcing of the wall to assure that I'm not speaking out term, but that the block would not, the block in the bigger gym, the large gym wouldn't fall unpredictably.
So the plan right now is there's a steel angle that's gonna go around the perimeter of the gym. It's gonna brace the top of the wall, and then there'll be vertical strapping every 40 inches. And it's a steel plate that will be welded to the steel angle along the top, and then will be tapped on into the block. And then there's some cracks that will need to be filled and reinforced.
So the metal going down, is that going to be exposed?
Yes.
Is that a safety issue for kids?
We'll put the wall pads back up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, wall pads come down, plate goes up, wall pads then go back up.
And the alternative, to be a permanent, what's
I think the alternative to be permanent would be to tear all those walls down and start over again, all four walls, and do masonry, typical masonry construction, which would be block, mortar and reinforcing in between each of the rows of blocks.
So have you mapped that out in a project
wall
schedule?
We have not.
We have not yet. We just got the report Thursday, so that has gone to Jason Hannon, we've met before, gone to his group, and I've asked them to give us a couple prices, one temporary, what the temporary look is, and then what a permanent look.
Okay, that's kind of what I was looking for.
So
Okay,
you can
good.
have, right, so you can have an ability to be informed and be able to make some choices. None of which are comfortable.
Yeah.
Neither of them.
Yeah.
Because it impacts program, it impacts the use of that gym directly. And we already took the small gym offline.
As a way to look at just past state ed practices to see if they provided money for schools in situations or becomes.
So campus and
They should.
SEI are very familiar with the emergency project process. What they will approve as an emergency project is an immediate fix, not a long-term solution. So, we would look to say, does the reinforcement that we just talked about with the steel at the top and the steel along the walls, that would qualify? Knocking it down and starting over with a new gym would most likely not qualify.
So that and hopefully would not then impact money that we have to use for programming staff or daily function operations.
Well, I mean,
That's the hope,
we
right?
don't have money in the budget
Right.
to pay for these needed renovations. So that money will come out of the budget at some point. We will receive our building aid on that. If state ed agrees that this is an emergency project, we will get that building aid within the following year. If not, it's gonna be reimbursed back over the 15 years like a typical building project. But to say that, the state education department is gonna provide funds to pay for this is not going to happen.
Refresh us once again. So for this coming school year, we're at the college.
Only for this summer, there were some summer camps. We were hoping by August 22nd that we would have access back in our gym for our practice volleyball to start.
Have we reached out to anybody for potential longer term?
So I met with Craig this morning and said, we don't know if we're gonna need this. Can you make the connection and see if it's a possibility?
Thanks.
So Gary, are we reasonably confident then that we can do the temporary fix and use the space?
Yes,
By
but
what
not
starts,
before September 1st,
it won't be September 1st, okay,
not at all.
okay.
And there's reasons for that. One is.
Yeah.
The design really, we've got the report from the engineer, but the architect really hasn't had an opportunity yet since that report was issued Thursday to actually come up with an actual design. So there's gonna be presumptions on our part to
Okay.
price that because we don't have those details from the architect to do that, but we can give a rough order of magnitude on that.
Okay.
The second thing is it's August 15th.
Yeah.
Every contractor right now who does school construction
Yeah.
is trying to get their own contracts done for the opening of school.
Right.
They would just laugh at us if we asked them to right now. So they would just say no and hang up the phone. So this is something that won't occur until September. And that just makes it even more painful.
And we're talking in terms of the temporary fix.
I'm talking in terms of temporary. fix.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to give a best guesstimate or?
On temporary fix?
Yeah. Or don't we know enough at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I would be
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
I can tell you, we're selecting steel sizes that are readily available to try and make it as efficient of a design as possible. So we have schedule in mind with the design. We're not trying to do anything that's gonna, take a while. This is vertical and needs to be done as fast as possible.
So I need a week or two to
Yeah.
come up with that.
Okay, understand.
So-
Okay.
So Gary, Put up a temporary fix. What's the longevity of that temporary fix? Good for 6 months, good for a year?
I don't have an
What
answer.
would be a-
That's why Kyle's here tonight too, so
The report said 1 to 2 years.
1 to 2 years.
Yes.
I can recall that.
22?
What, yeah, my question is what determines 1 year or 2 years? The big difference. I mean,
I was thinking
yeah,
that.
we'd have to, I'd like to get that nailed down. Is it 1 or is it 2?
Right.
Not 1 or 2. That makes sense.
Mhm.
That helps again with the decision making.
And that'll get nailed down before you have to make a decision.
Yes.
I think-
I mean, we hope, I mean. It's, these are the engineer's recommendations. And it's hard to say, it's hard for me to say, yes, they're gonna give me a definitive 1 year, 6 months. Because this is what's in the report. Hopefully we can get more information, but they may not say we can give you that because and we've had 2 different structural engineers in here to look at that space. One with over 40 years, another one, I don't know his background, but very experienced. I mean, they all walk in and say, this construction, no one has this. We've never seen this. In 40 years of my experience, I've never seen this. So it's very hard for them to give us detailed information because they're so unfamiliar with this construction. It just doesn't happen.
Unfortunately, the construction, it doesn't meet today's standards. We have 4-inch block that's spanning 30 feet. It doesn't meet what we would specify in terms of block thickness for that vertical span. It doesn't have the steel angle around the perimeter to help brace the wall. The drawings call for anchors at 32 inches on center vertically and horizontally. The structural engineer observed 64 inches, so it wasn't even built for the documents. You know, there's spots where the adhesive looks like it's dried and cracked and you can pull the block out. I know there's spots where it's performing somewhat. So it's not a good design, to be completely honest.
Did you say, I missed, heard what you said, did you say that when looking at the current structure, what was supposed to be the design was not actually done correctly?
Yeah, so the
That's great.
drawings show 32 inches on center for bracing, and HSE they measured 64 inches.
So if you imagine the wall, you've got a block wall, then you've got, say, steel behind it, a steel column, there should be a top, a steel connection between that would tie that block to the steel to help that lateral movement.
And that was in the design, what,
And it was skipped, basically, it was every 64 inches, not 32 inches.
And
You
the
only
building,
have half as much of that as you should have had.
right, and the building's supported by columns and steel beams, and the masonry is only there as a partition to separate spaces. But there's also spots where they notch the masonry to go around the columns and the beams. So there's even spots where that masonry, which 4 inches is inadequate, is now 1.5 to 2 inches. And you can, if you go in the gym, you can start to see where that cracking is happening at the steel columns and beams.
So it's not a risk of the thing falling down,
Right.
it's a risk of the
Right.
walls themselves.
So do the as-bills indicate that it was done correctly? And
There,
have you seen are there as-bills?
I think it was just the design drawings.
Right.
Okay,
That we had, that they were able to use, there was not really as-built.
okay.
So anyways, the bracing, a temporary fix is meant to just stop that wall from moving.
Okay. Thank you.
So we will keep you updated as more information comes forward. And one of the things that we are doing as we look forward is the capital outlay project. So you know that every year we are proposing that we do regular maintenance to the building. And I don't think I have to talk about the importance of that with the slides that we just shared. So this year we will be focusing our capital outlay project on the HVAC controls. And we're really struggling with the ability to heat and cool our elementary building. what the controls are telling, when you look on a computer, what's happening, it may not be what's happening in the classroom. So we really need to upgrade those boards and really make sure that we're able to heat and cool our building. And we're also having difficulties with our chiller this summer. And so there've been days that it's been very warm in here as we're working. So just trying to prioritize the capital outlay project list. It's extensive and long and just difficult to try and prioritize, but this was what we felt was the next important step. So we did do a playground inspection. Aaron was getting a lot of requests to fix items on the playground. And as he was fixing items, he started to notice some conditions of the playground that had him quite concerned. So we did have an audit completed on our playground. And when they complete an audit, they rate the hazards between 1 and 4. 1 means it needs to be fixed immediately or removed from the playground. Number 2 can schedule the item to be fixed as soon as possible. 3 and 4, schedule the item to be fixed on regular maintenance schedule. 3 meaning that there could be a potential for an injury. 4, it's unlikely there'd be an injury. An example of a 4 was some weeding around the outside of the playground. Some examples of the ones were the mechanism that actually holds the swings on the frame are compromised, and some are missing bolts. Some of the bolts are compromised. So if you've been by our playground, you see that we have caution tape and that they're unusable at this point. Another item that had pretty significant issues was the slide. There's a plastic round slide that has multiple cracks throughout the structure. So at this point, what we're doing is we have 2 options. Shut down the playground and start the process to replace the entire playground. Remove the items that are rated a number 1 that could cause a serious injury, and use other components of the playground. What my concern is removing the items that would cause serious harm and using the other components of the playground, is that the other components of the playground are also old and starting to show wear. And my concern is if we decrease the number of items on the playground, the amount of use is going to increase, and then we'll be soon at that stage. If you remember, we had originally, when we were back at probably about $40 million on our capital project, we had included monies in there for the playground. And unfortunately, that was one of the pieces that did come out of the original project because of a budget that we couldn't afford. I had put in our ARP funds monies to replace the playground. I didn't know we'd be doing it potentially as soon as we are. So where are we with our next steps? Casey is starting a playground committee. Like I said, we do have that allocated funding in the ARP grants. And just so you're aware, we do have to have architectural plans and state ed approval to make any major changes to our playground. So we also have coming up our board retreat, which we'll talk about a little bit later. One of my goals will be a facilities management plan, talking about really making sure that regular maintenance is happening to these items, so we don't get into a situation where we are. The age of our building, the age of the playground, it requires constant maintenance, and we just have to stay on top of it. It's not something that can be let go. So we'll keep you updated about the playground.
So does that mean,
Go ahead.
is the playground now off limits?
Parts of the playground, the parts that are indicated in number 1 are taped off and they're not allowed to be used.
So
There are other components of the playground that can be used. Tomorrow, we're discussing an admin team. Are we closing the whole playground completely down? Or do we remove those very dangerous items and allow those other pieces to be utilized? I worry about those other pieces continue that wear and tear. So yes is the answer, but yes with caution.
No, I heard that piece, but I was worried because now if we don't have the gym and then we don't have the playground.
We would still utilize the space. Yes. No, that's significant concern.
If you remove the number one items, what's left? 50% is. What's that?
Yeah,
How much of the playground is actually still there?
not much.
What year was the
Kind of
playground?
answers the question.
I believe it was 2000. It wasn't in the audit, but I thought I read somewhere it was in 2000.
Did they say anything about the, or they know anything with regards to just the slope or just the grounds as well? I know there's been
Yes,
injuries over the years out there.
so one of the
Sorry
things
about
that
that.
will make the playground renovation expensive is it would then need to become ADA compliant, meaning you would have to have access for anybody in a wheelchair. So those components would have to be taken in some sort of leveling, some sort of ramping, but yes. So as I said, we'll be developing Board of Education and district goals. On August 17th, this Wednesday, we'll have the New York State School Boards facilitate the first part of our retreat. And the second part of that retreat will be Board of Education and district goal development. And we will have those ready for either September 6th or the first meeting in October for Board of Education approval and presentation to the community. Sorry. Personnel. So you may have heard there's a national teacher shortage and there's a lot of moving people. And currently these are the positions that we have open. We do have an 8th grade social studies position open. We're completing final interviews tomorrow. 8th grade science, Mr. Salato's is in the process of scheduling those interviews. 8th grade ELA, we were just notified, so we have that position posted, and the high school Spanish position is now posted as well, but you will vote on a resignation later tonight. So, you know, one of the things that I did is reached out to some other districts just to see, is this Geneseo? Is it other districts? And so you can see, I left the names of the school districts off and just that these are Genesee Valley, BOCES school districts. And you can see in 2021, we replaced 4 teachers. In 2022, we're up to 10. And you can see the trend going down through the columns. You know, some schools had some pretty significant turnover last year, but that second column of 2022 teachers is pretty significant for many districts. And we have been lucky that our pools still have been competitive, and we've been getting a decent number of candidates for example, the social studies position, very good candidate pool for that position. So, but just wanted to show you that, you know, regionally, this is something that a lot of people are struggling with. You know, was talking to a neighboring superintendent about trying to get creative and reaching out to SUNY Geneseo to just talk about some recruitment possibilities, because this, I don't believe this is going away. I worry it's only going to get worse. So we'll hopefully start working on those pieces. And COVID, we can't forget about COVID. So the CDC did have recommendations out on August 11th. We anticipate that New York State education guidance will be out August 22nd. They did remove the recommendation cohort. That was really for the purposes of identifying students who had been exposed to a positive case and needed to be quarantined. We can offer diagnostic testing, but it's not required. They removed information about test to stay, so that's no longer required. And just added more detailed information when to wear a mask. And really that is when you have had COVID and you're returning to school. They're still at this point saying that for the first 5 days, isolation, stay home, but day 5 to day 10, wear a mask while in school. So I'm hopeful that New York State does not put any further requirements in place than the CDC, but we'll see when we receive that guidance. Any questions?
August is supposed to be quiet.
I know.
That's right.
August is
I
nothing
don't
but
I think we're gonna have lots of questions in the near future on
I
all this stuff. We're just
understand.
not sure where to begin right now.
I completely understand.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, I think.
Community relations, no one signed up to speak.
Nope.
Okay, we'll go to committee reports.
No.
Audit and finance,
No audit finance tonight,
okay.
more to follow next week.
The policy committee did meet tonight. And talked a lot about policies related to school boards and their functions, duties, resignations, powers of the board, election of board officers, reorganization stuff, appointments, designation, things that we do every year. Parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules of Order, executive sessions, which we're doing very well on that. Interestingly, there are two required committees that every board has to have. One is the audit committee, and the other is the visitation committee, which I've never heard of, which maybe Cindy would explain to us.
So according to the regulations and the board policy, the visitation committee is a committee made up of three board members that will visit at least one time a year the school district and come back at the next board meeting to report on the condition of the building, concerns that were noted. So that is what the visitation committee is for, to actually visit the committee and then come back at the next board meeting and report out the results.
Is that with a mind to the structure of the school or the way the school's operating or?
That's really the
all of it?
definition. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just, I never heard of it. You never heard of it, have you?
No?
Yeah. So anyway, well,
That's what happens when you read board policy.
so to be continued about that, talks about conferences, suggesting that every board does a self-evaluation. And we can talk about that Wednesday night, and a code of ethics. All this will be presented at our next meeting for the first reading. And it's part of the agenda for next time. You'll get all of this. You'll get all this for, there are undoubtedly going to be some questions about it. But that in essence is what we did. GCEF.
Nothing new, just wanted to thank
Yeah.
them. They did fund the last day of summer school, bounce house, obstacle course, which I didn't observe, but I did hear that our elementary principal did race Coach Mix through the obstacle, fully clothed for work, so he ended up a little wet, but didn't win. He wanted to play, he did.
like that, Gary, the board basically a question. Gary, I'd like to ask Gary one quick question.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, but we're down back and we're doing a visitation.
Oh,
And,
very good.
There you go. So I know it's down back and stuff like that, that the framework is up for the scoreboard and stuff like that, but one of the things that was, I was curious about, and I talked to Gary, prior to the meeting, was the type of scoreboard they were getting. It was all encompassing in regards to that displays could be put up on it and so on and so forth. We don't have a flagpole. Last year, we didn't have a flag at the very first home game. It was a little embarrassing for Jonesville Central. I think that we need to be focused at our first game, or not focused, but something needs to be done. We have a home game scheduled for September 3rd, I believe. I think it's our first home game, soccer. And I think that we need to get a flagpole. Or if the scoreboard's gonna be able to do displays like Avon's does, they put their flag up
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, the national anthem.
For the national anthem. So I'm not sure where that falls, whose house is, whether it's Gary's or whether it's ours with parents, but was anything considered, because the flagpole was taken down, was anything considered in the bid process and a new one would come up, or what type of scoreboard that we are getting that can be displays? If we could find some answers out so that we'd be prepared before it's.
So absolutely, I mean, the flagpole and the flag, that would be our responsibility. that is something that we should have taken place. Ken, I know you were instrumental in ordering the scoreboard. If you want to just speak to that?
It's essentially the same scoreboard they have on. Same one that we have.
I do have an answer, yes.
Oh.
So
Oh.
there is video graphic available on that scoreboard, since you asked me the question.
Yeah.
To do it, so we can, is that what, project an image on there? So potentially a flag can be projected on it.
So it could do the same thing, or we could get an actual flag pole and do something like that.
Yeah, with 2 weeks to go, I mean, I could be optimistic we get a poll in time, but we certainly could. The scoreboard.
I have way more confidence in you than you do.
Pragmatic. I'm just a really
One of
pragmatic person.
Yeah.
Scoreboards due tentatively the 29th, so we're up against work. But the power and the data will be done by the end of the week. So the moment that scoreboard shows up, they're gonna put it up, take the day, light it, go. So, we're gonna need John available too, hopefully not on vacation that week. And, we'll work on getting a graphic of a flag for that at the very least. And then we can also work on provisions to get a physical flag if necessary.
You need,
What's that?
we've got a phenomenal field and great athletes
Yeah.
will be coming there and such. I think that we need to
We'll work
be
on it.
respectful for our country and have our flag and display the flag pole. So
Agreed.
okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
We'll
that
figure
that's
some-
all in
We'll figure
place.
something
Yeah.
out.
Good catch. So I guess we're good. We'll go right to personnel.
Can we leave? Are we good?
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. We'll be in touch.
I'll see you too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have a good
night. Thank you.
Okay, under personnel. I'll entertain the consent motion for items 5.02 to 5.16.
Second. Okay, questions on any of those, folks?
Julie, you did send me questions, so I can go through those questions now. Before I get to the questions, just certainly want to, thank Danielle Hamel, Miladies, and Rachel Natoli for their services here at Geneseo. We will, be sad to see them go, but wish them well in their new endeavors, and, hope they have the best success, and we have good candidates. So on 5.04, you had a question about summer school substitutes. The reason that they're being appointed tonight, they had been left off the original list, and so we wanted to make sure that they were board appointed so they could get approved. 506, the permanent building subs. Last year, we made the decision to add daily building subs because we were having such a high number of absences. A lot of the absences weren't things that teachers could control. It was either they had COVID, had been exposed to COVID, their children had COVID, their children's daycare had COVID. And so we knew that the need for substitutes was going to be very high. And it was very helpful to have both an elementary and a middle school, high school building sub. So that's what that position is. See, we're being.
Thank you for doing those and doing those. Those are great. Group staff.
Absolutely. 5.09, we are appointing another clerk typist. This is replacing the position that Kathy Gray, we didn't replace her when she left 3 years ago. And it's been determined that we do need that position. It was very difficult for one secretary to keep up all the responsibilities in the special education office. 5.10, Katrina Jenkins, she is she's being a sub. So what we're doing in the summer, she's not working every day, but she is working during the summer. A lot of our materials and supplies come in. And so we have to have someone checking them in, stamping that they are the Geneseo property of Geneseo Central School. So she's going through all the purchase orders, making sure that what was ordered was delivered, and doing that stamping piece. It was just the boxes were piling up, so we needed help with that piece. Okay. Transportation request. So yes, we do bid out our transportation request, and 2 things happen when we put our special education transportation request out for bids. One is we only get CNF, Or we get CNF and another company out of Rochester, and the other company out of Rochester is literally 3 times as much per day. The other thing that CNF does is every year we are allowed to roll over those contracts if we increase it by CPI, and they have done that. The reason we still have those need for those special education contracts is they are currently in either a Rochester city placement, private school, 101 or 102 BOCES placement. They're continuing. We're not allowed to send any new referrals to 101 and 102, but they were currently in programs and are continuing in those programs.
Yeah, it struck me as $250,000 for
It's-
6 students. That's,
It's
I understand the need, I understand the requirements, that's not the issue. But then, no, I want to follow up question on that. Do we coordinate with other districts?
So that is what
So-
CNF, yeah, that's what CNF
Okay.
does. And anytime that we can share transportation, we do that as well.
Somebody and take 2 or 3 or
Yep.
4?
So, you know, I mean, it's been a while since I've been in the special education office, but they would coordinate with Mount Morris, Livonia, and Geneseo. CNF would do that, and that would reduce our cost.
Okay, so is this the reduced cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you like?
So having the building subs, if we find that, attendance is better, like there's not all those COVID related issues, will there be like redistribution of what they're doing if they're not needed for subs? You know what I mean? Like, will there,
I
are there other
do. I
identified things for them?
Yes, I can't anticipate a day that we wouldn't have at least one person out in either the elementary or middle school, high school. So because they are in those positions first.
So they're filled, so open positions, they go to first, and then others are called.
And typically
Okay.
what happens, because the two building, the people who are being recommended for the building level subs, they're good substitutes.
Mhm.
If a teacher knows they're going to be out, they usually ask them to fill in for their classroom pretty quickly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the personnel items? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous, thank you.
Under new business, I'd like to entertain a consent motion for item 6.02 through 6.12.
Second. Questions on any of those? Are you okay?
Yep.
All right. All in favor of those, say aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? That's unanimous, thank you. Just to
Under business office. Entertain a motion for item to approve item 7.02.
second.
And there was a typo, we are off $1 in our tax roll and tax levy, so we did make that correction.
It's pretty close.
Good catch.
It's pretty good. Great. All in favor, item 702, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed? Thank you. Unanimous. So, discussion items, the visitation committee, I think we already touched on that. More to follow. And,
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session to discuss one personnel matter.
and a contractual.
Oh, and a contractual.
And one litigation, we did have,
Oh, and- oh,
we,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
Right,
this morning.
so to discuss 3 items,
Mhm.
Second being.
personnel contract litigation.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.